Hello everyone. This is kind of my review of 24W33A and in particular its redstone changes. Um, I did try to send feedback through the official feedback forum, but unfortunately either I don't have a high enough level to, or they had thread locked, but for some reason I couldn't post it. And I saw a lot of kind of misconceptions in the complaints I saw there. Um, Kind of start off with, this does not change anything with pistons. So as you can see here, they still have quasi connectivity. And a lot of people basically complained that this ruined zero ticks, which I think is demonstrably false. As you can see here, we have kind of the comparator repeater um, pulse generator, and if I run it, you can see that we are still getting a zero tick at the end. We're teleporting this block into the armor stand, or teleporting it out, and you can see it's completely fine. And in fact, I would argue that zero ticks have been buffed, because you can now just create a zero tick generator with dust alone instead of using repeaters and comparators. And I think that in terms of introducing people to zero ticks, this makes a lot more sense because you kind of have the kind of idea that yes, these are going to update at different times, and I can control that visually. Whereas this is kind of more of knowing the exact update order that the game has. And in fact, zero tick generators that rely on dust kind of pulsing everything, these still work as well, as you can kind of see. Now, you can even kind of transmit information with zero ticks. It doesn't work on pistons, unfortunately, but I'm fairly certain that was kind of already an issue that the game had before. So in terms of update order, I think that the changes are fine, especially because now we have instant dropper lines, which I can demonstrate here. If I put a bunch of items in here and pulse this, you can see that we have a redstone dust out there, and then the copper bulb, and then it looks like we have the smooth stone block, and then finally our lever. So I think that that is also a good indication that this is a good change. Where the issue comes in, though, is really kind of update order when you're considering things like transparent blocks. In previous iterations, this would send an update to this piston, which is quasi-powered, and it would update. But as you can see, that's not really happening at the moment. We can resolve that by replacing this last transparent block with a lamp, which is also a transparent block, which I can demonstrate by powering it, and as you can see, the piston isn't activating. But now this kind of piston does work. Whether or not this is useful, though, is a little bit questionable, because the entire reason somebody might have this kind of configuration is if, for example, they had a piston down here that they don't want to update, and as you can see, that still works. But another possibility is that they have a redstone torch here that is sending off a signal, and in this case, this will not fix the update issues. So my rough guess here of what's happening is that redstone dust changes its update behavior on whether or not there is a solid block here, because obviously if it's sending an update to this block, it's not really updating the piston, I think. So to me, that would seem to indicate that it is sending that update when there is a solid block here, or maybe solid blocks update when they get power, I'm not quite sure. But that is something that maybe could be improved upon in terms of maintaining the continuity between machines without kind of losing the advantage of having all these kind of new update orders and reduced over updates. There is also like locationality, and that has been partially fixed by having the update order, and some people are worried about that breaking things, but I'm personally of the opinion that if you're designing something with locationality, that's not really best practice unless you're very, very limited in choice. But in that case, I'm not really torn up about that. Just because of how much I think these changes actually make the game better. Um, Hopper minecarts and just minecarts in general, I'm a little bit more conflicted on. Here I have a very kind of wacky multi-item sorter I actually came up with recently that uses minecarts in a loop, and if I run it, we can actually see that it is working correctly, so we're dropping off the doors here, and after this, it will be dropping off the rails in this corner. I think there is actually a rail stuck in there. There we go. And in terms of functionality, this basically remained exactly the same as it previously behaved. The only difference is that I think I had to move this over because when it dropped onto the hopper and immediately left, it wouldn't actually leave an item in this hopper here. I don't think that's a big deal, but it is kind of just a little bit annoying in terms of compactification. What I'm more concerned about is that cart eaters do not seem to work anymore, and to prove that this is actually correctly set up, you can see that I have a cauldron of lava there, but if I run this through, you'll see that the minecart actually snaps perfectly onto this bottom rail, and it even does so if I remove that rail, or take this out. And this is, I think, concerning because cart eaters have become very popular for farms and sorting systems, and in fact, they kind of arguably are the only reason some farm designs and approaches to item management work at all, just because of the fact that you need that high throughput. So having this broken, I think, is kind of a major step backwards in terms of improving the usefulness of carts. Now, whether or not this means that like how they travel through empty space needs to be reverted, or hopefully just tweaked so these can stay, but otherwise the improved falling and kind of railless mechanics work. But honestly, because I think that cart eating kind of is a semi-bug, there are ways to do it on both Java and Bedrock, and it relies on the fact that hopper minecarts no longer split in two when you use them. But because of that kind of weird quasi-bug status, I think that the ideal solution would honestly be finding some way to introduce this as a feature, so that way we can keep these new minecart changes, and also keep cart eating, but also that way have it where both Java and Bedrock have at least a on the surface similar way of break unloading minecarts, because from what I have seen, it is a little bit more convoluted on Bedrock, and I don't think that is really something that a lot of people who play Bedrock appreciate, especially because I do see this a lot more commonly on Java. So having something that kind of unifies both of them would be a great addition to the game, I think. And with that, I think that is all of my thoughts for now.